We are joined now with Justin Leonard of Southlake Carroll High School in Texas. They are a 6A school with about 2,700 students. Justin's been coaching for 16 years, 14 years as the head coach, an astonishing 12 team state titles, 5 individual state champions, 26 Nike Cross National qualifications for his boys and girls teams, with a boys runner-up finish in 2001 and a girls runner-up finish in 2012. He's had a Foot Locker National individual champion, a sub-4-minute miler, the fourth fastest in U.S. high school history, 3,200-meter state meet record, 44 individual state medalists. Again, that's in the biggest classification in Texas. 5 Nike National All-Americans, 3 Foot Locker qualifiers, 70 Division I state Division I runners, and a state meet cross-country low point records for boys of 20 points in 2011 and the girls 32 points in 2012. Quite a career so far, and you've got many years to go still. Coach, welcome to the podcast. Would you like to first maybe tell us a brief introduction of yourself about your getting into running and how you became a coach?
Yeah, kind of a unique route into running and distance running. I grew up in a really small town. I grew up in a town that's had a population of 850 people in it. And being in Texas, the main focus was football and then basketball, then baseball. And so when I was in high school, we didn't even have a cross-country team. So I did football, basketball, and track, and got into running, did 800, then went and ran it at UTA. And kind of along the way met some people, and kind of inspired me and got me into coaching. And then got really lucky landing in Southlake, and I had no idea. I went with my wife. My wife was applying for a job in Southlake, and I was going to stay in and do another year. I wanted to coach in college. I was going to do another year of grad assistant work in college, and I went with her to drop off her resume in Southlake, and I ran into one of my professors. She's like, "Hey, we got a job opening. You need to apply for it." My wife looked at me. She goes, "Yeah, he does need a job. He'll apply for it." So I got an interview the next day, and I never even met the head cross-country coach or had nothing, and I got hired. And so I kind of fell into a school and a place. It was really kind of dumb luck, and, it's all worked out, sometimes my mom always told me, when you're dumb, sometimes God takes care of you. So I think that's kind of helped me out along the way. He's taken care of me a lot, and I got lucky with the place I'm at, so.
Well, that's awesome. We're going to talk a lot of training stuff today too, but we want to dive into some big topics that are really relevant right now as we are going through the pandemic. So our first question today is, how did you personally handle things when everything shut down this spring?
Yeah, it was hard, a really hard pill to swallow for us. We were having the Texas Distance Festival. We were on spring break. We had Texas Distance Festival planned for Saturday. And so we had a stacked boys 5K. We had Meffner coming in, and then we had a kid out of Boyden out of Utah. It was going to be a really fast meet. And so we were looking forward to that, getting planned, getting set up. And the Thursday before, so 2 days before the meet, everybody's supposed to fly in on Friday. I got a call from our district saying, "Hey, we're going to need to shut down the event." So at first, initial response was, "Hey, we're going to have to close this meet down, and then we should be up, back and going in a couple of weeks. This thing will blow over, So then, just like everybody else, it went from 1 week to 2 weeks to 2 months, 3 months, and so here we are. So it was really tough. I thought, especially for the seniors of our class, we had some really good meets in February and one in March, and we were really excited about the class and everything. And then just to completely shut down. And the UIL came out, our governing body said, "Hey, we're going to start back up in April." So we continue to train. They had to train on their own, so continue to give them workouts. And so that led on for a while, and then everything got drawn out and seemed like, one cancellation after another. And so the season was finally over after that. So I think the hardest thing for me personally with that is I like to always have end of the year meetings with our seniors and, kind of talk with them and tell them how much I appreciate their work ethic and being in the program, and have kind of those parting words. And that was kind of cut from us a little bit. So it was hard with that.
Very difficult. Texas starts a little earlier than some states, being in the South. How much of your season did you guys get to complete?
We got in. We had 3 track meets. We got in 3 track meets, and then it was cut. So we start up. Usually, we always start up the Valentine's weekend is usually our first one. We'll have another one at the end of February, then one in the beginning of March. So that's usually whenever we start going.
So then as things shut down, you said you continued, sending workouts. Was that all done virtually through email and stuff? And
It was virtual, just a lot of Zoom meetings, meeting with them and having them, go on their own, and they could also meet with some of their teammates and stuff if their parents allowed it, and kind of continue the workouts that way.
So give us an idea of how many kids and you were trying to manage during that time period as you're trying your Zoom meeting and you're sending stuff out. And so how did that format look for you guys?
It was we have about, usually in track season we're about 140 to 150 kids, and so that was hard to, again, never had to do it before, right? So I've never been forced into a situation of having to do the virtual thing. So we broke it up into meetings. I had Zoom meetings with freshmen, and then the next day with sophomores, next day with juniors, next day with seniors, and then I would meet with our varsity kids as well. And so we just had to spend a lot of time on Zoom, and then also to make videos and send out videos of what the workout was going to look like and what we needed to do, and talk with them that way. And a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails. So it was pretty chaotic, but I think y'all all know, you're all coaches. That's our life, right? So, it's we live by anytime we get an email or something like that, it's just kind of, it's fluid, right? So
when the track season was finally done, when you guys knew it was over and it couldn't be saved, how did you then transition into the summer, and what did that look like for you and your team?
Yeah, so I think probably the easiest part coaching in Texas is it really wasn't that big of a deal for us as far as managing workouts, because here in Texas, we start in February. Our district meet is the 1st of April. So 90% of our kids are done in the beginning of April. So it's only really your varsity, your top 3 to 4 to 5 boys and girls that will continue on after April. And if you're fortunate enough, they go to mid-May. So we just continue with our normal training. I sent out what we would do for the rest of the track season. And that way we all stayed on our normal routine. And then we go into a shutdown, and give them 3 to 4 weeks of recovery. And so we were able just to stay into our normal routine all the way up until May. And then we kind of start easing back into our base phase and gearing up for cross country. So our season's kind of ends soon. So we only had really 3 or 4 weeks left before our district meet, where most of our kids' season was over once the pandemic hit. So that was that's one fortunate thing was that it was pretty easy to manage the training part.
When you transitioned into cross country for the summer, were you guys ever able to meet together, or did it continue to be online? How has your summer looked so far?
So here in Texas, we got a ruling. It came out in the about middle of May that starting June 8th, we were able to start meeting with our kids for strength and conditioning is what they call it here. So we were able to start meeting as groups on June 8th and begin practice at that point. So we've been going since June 8th for practice.
And what does a normal summer week look like at Southlake Carroll?
So it depends on where we're at in our season. Main focus early summer, so we kind of break it up, is June and mid-July is really just getting a base in and getting mileage, getting incoming freshmen acclimated to the program, trying to get them involved, trying to keep them, and have them stay. And that's been difficult with this, but really just getting mileage. And then we'll start easing into tempos and start doing our tempo runs. And then as it goes on, we get towards the end of the summer, we'll start kind of hitting some repeats and things of that sort. So main focus over the summer is, and to be honest with you, my main deal is just having consistent mileage and being able to get a base that way.
One of the questions that somebody asked on Twitter that they wanted us to ask you, and it seems like a good time to ask. one of the questions was, what is kind of your average mileage for, say, your top 5 guys, your top 5 girls, or maybe your top 10 on each side? Kind of just in general, what are you guys trying to work towards and hold through summer and season?
Right. Um, for us, kind of not trying to spend too much time, but our goal is I want our kids to run their fastest their senior track season. So the kind of the mileage that we have set up here is freshman year. I want to get our freshman boys to 30 miles a week. And if they're showing promising signs going into their freshman track season, we may let them get up to 35 miles a week. Girls hover around, 25 to 30 miles a week as well. Sophomores, we get to 45 to 50 miles a week. Juniors and seniors, they'll be hovering around 60 to 65 miles a week. And so that's about as high as we get. And so occasionally we may hit 70 by their senior year. And that's for boys. Girls never go over 50 miles a week. We stay in between 40 to 45 miles a week for our juniors and seniors is where we stay at. And I've been all over with it, and we've been, some years we'll do high mileage and some years we would do lower mileage, and kind of figure I've got into a spot now where I feel comfortable, because I believe that mileage is key, right? I want to get as many miles as possible, but also too is risk reward, and I just really want to keep the kids healthy and let them have a season. So that's been a position that we've been to. And I think the biggest advice I would give anybody is just listen to the kid's body. If you have a kid that's showing up and running every day, you can figure out real quick what their physical age limit and what they can and can't handle. And I always read the kids' recovery runs. If they're struggling on the recovery runs, the reason why is usually their mileage is probably too high and they can't handle it. Because y'all know, a lot of us get kids in cross country that don't really have a whole lot of athletic background. So the first time in their life they've ever run a mile is their freshman year of cross country. So that kid's not going to get to very high mileage until the end of his freshman year.
We always laugh about, they start off and they're running like 2 miles or something, and it's such a struggle. And then when they get older, if you ever told them you're going to run 2 miles, they celebrate like they get a day off or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Going on that kind of same pathway, thinking about what is the progression, I guess I would say, of the long run look like in your program from when they're freshmen and up to their seniors? Things like how long do you let them run for in their long run, and where do you like to place those workouts during your training cycles?
That's a good. Our long run, we've moved that around and positioned it. So first start, we're like most people, we'll do a Sunday long run, but we can't meet with the kids, so they're supposed to do it on their own. And so then you start wondering, well, what percentage of kids are actually doing that workout? We all know how important the long run is, right? So I was like, well, not doing that anymore. We're going to move our long run to Monday. And so we'll do a long run on Monday. Then I've moved it to Wednesday. I've moved it, but I've kept the long run during the week so that we're all at practice to making sure that they're getting that run in. And then we'll usually place 2 tempo runs somewhere within the week as well. But our progression for the long run is, man, our freshmen that come in, we literally just have them start running 1 mile a day. That's it. And so we start them out. So the goal is for me is to be able to get those freshmen to be able to do a 4 to 5 mile long run before school starts. And so if we can get them up to 3 miles by the end of July and then get them to 4 miles, then I feel pretty confident on being able to sell them to run a 5K. And so that's how we progress them. And then we'll get our boys up to 12 to 15 miles, our upper level boys, 12 to 15 miles on a long run. We'll vary it. Some weeks we'll move up, and then some weeks we'll drop it down. And the girls' goal is to get to 10 to 12 on their long run as well. So that's always been our deal on the long run. You can get those capillaries and everything else going. So,
Coach, you mentioned the tempo run's an important part of your training program, and we've kind of joked around here that if you ask 10 distance coaches to define a tempo run, you might get 11 different answers. Can you tell us what a tempo run looks like in your program?
So our tempo runs, it varies. That's the million. And what's funny is I was on a coach's Zoom meeting, and I never really realized how much coaches vary on their the long run. The long run, some people do progression runs on their long runs, and our long run is we want it to be, not fast paced, but we try to keep a decent pace, and it's a hard workout for us. But I was really shocked with the varying answers for the long run and what that was. But tempo for us is pretty easy. We start out in the season. We'll take a kid of what they normally run, a kid that's a returner, and come up with a pace for him of where we see him being in the season, and then we'll predicate our tempo paces based off of that and have a progression throughout the season. That tempo will gradually get faster and faster and faster. So we like to vary our tempo. Beginning of the year we'll be a little bit slower and kind of ease them into it, because we're easing everybody into a transition in mileage, transition in pounding, and so kind of ease the difficulty of the tempo run into it. And so we'll vary distance as well. We'll have a longer tempo run. We have a shorter tempo run. And then as we get closer to our meet season, I've always really thought it's real important to and we have to practice race pace at some point during practice, right? So I don't want our first meet to go out there and a kid's going out in 5:05 is his first time to ever open up, and 5:05 is in a meet, and then right afterwards he asks, "Coach, what happened?" Well, you just opened up faster than you ever have in your entire life. That's what happened, bud. But so we try to practice those of what a opening split would be as the season gets on for twos in those tempo runs. So I don't know if I really answered your question or not, but it varies, right? So I think I just added to what everybody else says.
Absolutely.
No, you said it varies, but then you were pretty specific, I thought. With your, along those lines of tempo runs, is there kind of a hard cap that you have in your mind as to like what the maximum distance at tempo run you're comfortable with giving your athletes, or are you more kind of the mindset of, well, we'll just take it athlete to athlete and maybe year to year and just kind of see where people are as far as that goes?
Our goal is to be able to get our boys up to being able to handle 6 to 8 miles for a tempo run, and we're trying to get our girls 4 to 6 miles on their tempo runs. And it's gotten to be where over the years we've done so many of them that we have kind of indicators on what previous teams and previous runners have been at those certain points. So it's really kind of a good gauge. And come August, I can tell pretty quick on how our tempo runs are going, on what kind of team we're going to have that season. And it's a pretty clear indicator. So that's our goal, is to get girls 4 to 6, boys 6 to 8 for that longer tempo. So that's what we shoot for, getting them there. So most of the time we have enough returners to where we're able to do that.
Can I ask this? And since I don't know if many people have been to Nike Nationals as much as you have, so if you've got a boys team or a girls team doing a longer tempo, what pace do you think your top 5 or 7 would maybe be running for those longer tempos on one of your typical?
So the longer tempo runs, our goal for our girls is to try to get them to be able to be anywhere between 6 to 6:20 to 6:30 on their tempo runs. And our boys, we're trying to get for our good kids, we're trying to get them to where they're 5:30 on their tempo runs. So they're a little more, they're harder. That to me, that if I could just keep anything, I believe for us the distance is key, right? The tempo runs is the key to the staple of our program. We've had kids that have been injured and come back from being injured, and we didn't take them to intervals, didn't do any speed work. I just stuck them right back onto our tempo-based program, and we had a kid get second place at the state meet off straight tempo runs. We had a girl this past season get 13th place at the state meet, and she was only doing tempo runs, no speed work, no intervals, anything. So I really feel like that mileage is key, and distance is strength, right? So that's really our point of emphasis on those runs, and gradually kind of move the times down as it goes. But the other thing is, here in Texas, it is brutal sometimes. My son's going to be a 7th grader. I've been dragging him to practice, and we get out there, and the other day it was 6:30 in the morning, and it was 86 degrees at 6:30 in the morning. And the humidity was like 80%. He's like, "Dad, what is wrong with me? I'm having a hard time breathing." I'm like, Yeah, you're gonna be saying that a lot, son. So don't worry.
Um,
Good luck.
Transitioning now from what you talked about, a staple in the training in your program, and then moving on to how you like to structure things at the end of the season. Not everybody has people have varying views on whether they emphasize what they call a peak or they don't. Is there something that you really like to emphasize as far as the training is concerned when you transition from your regular season workouts to what you look at as your end of the season, your championship meet season?
For us, I guess moving into are you talking about like championship part of the season?
Yeah, I'd say maybe like your last, let's say like your final 4 weeks.
Okay, so our main goal is just like everybody else, we're trying to be at our best for certain meets and given meets. So we'll set it up to be running at our best then at those certain times. So we talk about that with the kids all the time, and I'm really big into. I think the high school running is different than college and professional running, where I really believe that peaking for a high school athlete, the mental peak is just as important as the actual physical peak, right? So we've got to get those kids ready for what they're going to see and what they're going to feel, and the anxiety and the pressure and everything else of those big meets coming up. So we really focus on a lot of attention to detail and talking with them about workouts. That's what I'm huge into, explaining the workouts and the purpose of the workouts for the kids, and kind of map out our season of what we're looking for. And also for our veteran runners, we'll change up our training, right? So we'll go to big meets where we were able to go to big meets. I'm not sure about this year, but for the month of October, end of September, month of October, we tried to go to big meets like Woodbridge, Chili Pepper. And so what I would like to do in those is we would change our training week a little bit. So for 1 week, the Woodbridge meet would have a different type of workout. And then come Chili Pepper, we'd have a different type of workout. So I'm reading those workouts, and then I read the performances of how they do at those meets. And then according to how those kids do and the team does that time, we will kind of look at that for our postseason of what they responded to better with and more off of.
I think we've got some more training questions too, and a couple more things about the, working through the pandemic. But real quick, I wanted to mention this. You're a great Twitter follow, and you've always putting out really inspirational quotes and things like that. Who inspired you? Who kind of was your driving influence as a new runner and young coach?
So that I didn't get into that part of the story. So that the hometown I was in, that 850 people, their lady came up to me and she was like, "Hey, you really like running?" And I was like, "Yeah," I said, "I enjoy it." She's like, "Well, my dad is a college coach, and if you ever want to talk to him, I'll give him your number." And so I was like, "Oh, okay." And so she did, and I ended up calling him, and he was living out in California at that time, and I was talking with him on the phone. He's like, "Hey, I'm going to send you a book." And so he sent me a book, and it was a book that he actually wrote, and he ended up moving to my hometown, and it was Ted Banks. He coached at UTEP and won 17 NCAA championships at UTEP, and he coached Nordine Morcelli out at Riverside Community College, ran 3:44 in the mile. And so he ends up moving to my hometown, and I ended up working in summers for him. And so I would go out. He had a stroke right before he moved to my hometown, so he was paralyzed on the left side of his body. So in the summer times, I would put in flower beds for him and landscaping stuff. And then after I was done working, I'd go in and we'd spend hours just talking, training and talking, story after story after story. So he was my mentor. He inspired me to get into coaching. He said his big thing was always just be observant. You'll learn a lot of what not to do and what to do from watching a lot of people. And so he was my big inspiration and kind of helped me out a lot in being able to talk with him. So I was real, like I said earlier, been real fortunate with just running into people at the right time.
That's awesome. So kind of moving from there then, what would be your advice for young coaches? If someone was starting a program, what would you give them? What bits of advice or, key components would you tell them to, focus on early that maybe you wish you knew when you were younger?
For young coaches, I really, my biggest piece of advice is and Coach Banks, the one that told me this, he said, just when you join, you're going to be an assistant coach. He says, go in, listen, observe, and just kind of map out that when it's your turn or you get an opportunity to be a head coach, what you want to do. And from that, I think the biggest emphasis I like to point out to kids coming into the profession, especially for high school, is you graduate college, you ran in college, right? And so in your mind, you're like, man, I know how to design a workout. I know how to implement a workout. I'm going to be the best coach ever. I'm going to have so many kids out there. But what a lot of people forget is high school coaching, the actual coaching part and knowledge of training is not even close to the most important factor. If you don't have kids to coach, you're not going to be very good. It doesn't matter who you are. You have to be able to know how to get kids into your program, how to keep kids in your program, how to motivate kids to stay in the program and buy into work ethic. A freshman could care less about how much knowledge you know about training and everything else. All they care about is, are you nice to them? Do you treat them well? And are you able to keep them coming back to practice? So that's what I think is my advice would be to go around and go visit coaches and kind of see what they do, and let's learn from each other and kind of pick ideas from each other.
So one thing I wanted to ask during these weird times, these last 5 months or so, have you picked up any new creative ways of doing things in terms of holding kids accountable or motivating? Have you had to innovate in any way that maybe you wouldn't have done without this current situation?
Never would have done Zoom meetings. I can tell you that. That's the first time. I've never would have recorded. We do what's called log books. So 2 times a week, I will make an article. It'll be like goals, character development, motivation. So we have log book where all the kids have to come. And so I was doing those, recording those and sending those out, our logbook sessions. So I never would have done that before. So it's all different, now. But I think we'll learn a lot from it. I really believe our biggest thing is we'll not take things for granted as much, once we get back to some kind of normality,
And then I wanted to ask, how is Texas planning to handle the upcoming cross-country season as it is right now? We know the situation is constantly changing, but what does Texas have in store for now?
So we just got word last week, so it all just kind of dropped last week, and we were in a mad rush, all of us coaches. So they moved our everything got moved back a month, basically. So our district meet is now November 12th. Regional meet is going to be November 23rd, and state meet is going to be December 5th, which is normally when Nike Nationals would be. So everything got pushed back. The biggest thing that happened for us was most of your invites are probably like y'all's where there's 60, 70, 80 teams there. Well, our governing body came out and said, hey, it's 8 teams max. You can only have 8 teams there and a total of 10 kids per gender per division. And then, so this is where it gets kind of tricky. If we host a meet on Saturday, we can run varsity boys and then run varsity girls. So you have a total of 10 girls and 10 boys from your team run. Everybody, 8 teams. We have to clear the park. They have to leave. And then we're able to bring in our JV teams.
Oh, my.
They run 10 boys, 10 girls. They race. Then you got to clear the park. So we all had to come together and create kind of we did different leagues. So we got 21 teams here in our area together, and we're all kind of switching off and hosting 3 meets apiece, and kind of so we're not racing against everybody. And so we'll take our remaining of our JV kids that aren't able to compete in normal invites, and we'll do dual meets and things of that sort on Thursday. So it got real complicated real quick. That's what I've always loved about cross country is we were able to run every kid, every meet. We all go 3-4 hours later, we're done. We're on a bus going back. Well, that's not going to be the case this year. So,
do you think you'll get to keep your full roster? You won't have to make cuts or anything like that?
No, we won't have to make cuts. We're going to do those dual meets on Thursdays and keep them going. And also we won't race our top kids every week. So we'll be able to kind of move more kids into some slots, hopefully. And, But
and then when did the UIL make this decision? And then how shortly thereafter did you coaches come together to come up with your plan to structure a season?
They made it last week, last Monday, so 8 days ago. And when that came out, we knew that it was going to be. There's not a whole lot of meets when you start really thinking about it, how many meets that you go to. So we were like, we're in trouble, because our meet that we host is usually 70 to 80 teams, and now I can only have 8. So that's going to fill up real quick. So all the meets that we would normally go to are going to be full. So we're like, we got to create something so that we have meets to be able to go to, or we're going to be, doing our own road races or something on our own. So we got on that. We met, a bunch of us coaches met last Thursday and came up with a deal.
Have you guys had any issue trying to find places to host meets? That's one of the challenges we're going to find here in Kansas City, is finding facilities where they'll even allow us to host a race. So have you guys had to kind of scramble in that way too?
We've had our city's fortunately pretty easy to work with, but I've got to find one more park to be able to host a meet at, and it's pretty difficult to be able to do that. So that's the challenging part, is finding a location that will have it. And here, every county is a little bit different, right? So we can't run. Tarrant County is where our school's located at, and they came out with a ruling saying we can't compete in a meet until after September 28th. So our first meet is going to be October 3rd. Well, a school 5 miles away is in a different county. They can start having meets on September 7th. So it's varying from county to county on when you can and can't start. So that's made things a little bit more difficult too.
With all this happening too, is there one specific message that you found that you want to make sure that your athletes understand? So when you get them together and you talk with them a little bit about, how they're progressing and how their training's going, is there one message that you're just constantly, trying to give them?
Flexibility, being flexible, but at the same time, staying motivated. We had practice this morning. That's exactly what I just talked to them about this morning. Was we have kids all over the map right now. I mean, I'm sure y'all are this way too. We've got kids that have been to every practice since we were able to start up, and I've got some kids that they come to practice. Well, all of a sudden the numbers start rising. Parents keep them home. Then I've got some kids that I haven't seen since March. They're, and it's right now it's all a parental decision. So got to have flexibility with that. But at the same time, I always tell them is, listen, we got to stay motivated. We call it a price tag mentality. We know what it takes in order to be successful. So you're either going to put in the work or you're not going to put in the work. So we have to make sure that we're holding the bargain. And right now unfortunately, I feel like right now is it's an easy time to be like, hey, well, it's not convenient right now. So life is difficult. So you're going to see a lot of kids that aren't going to work hard. So I think that's the biggest challenging part is keeping those kids motivated and keeping them engaged and having flexibility. Like, hey, this is not going to be a normal season, but our goal is to have a season. So we're going to have to be flexible and follow the guidelines.
Coach, we're coming to the end here. We're in the home stretch, so we're just going to pop a few short, easy questions, some running related, some kind of goofy. I'm going to start off with something goofy. What did you binge stream during these last 5 months? Did you find anything on Netflix or Hulu or anything that really you enjoyed?
I did. Netflix is I love Netflix. So, of course, I'm a huge Narcos fan. I love Narcos and Narcos Mexico. I got to do that. And then I have never seen Better Call Saul, so I got caught up on all those. I don't know if y'all have seen that, but so got that all situated. So now we're waiting on something else to come out and drop here pretty soon.
Awesome.
I got one. This is a prediction, so I'm gonna write this down. I'm gonna ask you a question. I want your prediction, and then somebody will contact you if this comes true. Assuming that there is a Division I cross country season, you go through the season, they hold a national championships. Who is the 2020 men's team champion? Who is the 2020 women's team champion? if you want some help, I can give you the top 10 finishers from last year's race. You let me know.
Well, it's hard to go on the men's side. I think it's going to be hard to go against NAU. I mean, that'd be pretty tough one to go against. And then on the women's side, man, what did BYU women finish last year?
They were second.
I'd probably go with them.
And just a shout out for the Heartland Distance Summit Coaches Clinic in the summer. Coach Taylor was supposed to be one of our speakers this summer, and she's agreed to come back next year. So we'll keep listeners of the podcast up to date on that.
You will be sent prizes if that
There you go.
true. So
That's good.
All right, so let's go with a book. So anything you've read recently, like running related, not running related, that's impacted you or impacted your outlook on coaching or life or anything like that?
Well, I just got through reading Consistency is Key, the Jay Johnson's book that just came out. I'm sure everybody else is reading that too. And then I got another book the other day that I'm about to start. But this is really strange. I ran across a book probably 3 or 4 years ago, and it's called I'm Here to Win. And it's his name's slipping me, but he's a triathlete, and his mentality was, I mean, was it Chris McCormick? He's a little bit out there, but at the same time, our sport is so different. It's about handling and managing pain, and I got real intrigued with that book, so I enjoyed that one.
So my question is, much more simple. So what do you all refer to them as? Strides, striders, or build-ups?
We call them strides. So strides, but I don't know really why we call them strides, because we have them all out. So it's like basically a sprint. So, and then build up. Here's the thing. I'm going to go off on a tangent here. All right. What is a build up? Because I'm like, hey guys, we're going to do a build up. And they're like, well, what? I'm like, well, let's go 70%. And they're like, well, what's 70%? I don't know. 70%. So 80%, 90%. I got freshman boys that, their sprint looks like it's about 20%, but that's all out. So we just made it simple and say we're going to go all out on these. So we do strides. We do drills to get them warmed up, and then do some strides, some all out. What we call them strides. But I guess we should call them all out sprints. I don't know.
Fantastic. Coach, thanks so much for being with us today. Good luck this season. Stay healthy, and we hope to be in touch with you again somewhere down the road.
All right. Hey, I appreciate it, guys. Y'all have a good day.